Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ernesto from Attaboycowboy, and today I'm going to talk about how to take advantage of student debt. Now today I'm filming here at a castle in La Habana, Cuba, and I wanted to share these really cool cannons with you as we talk about how to maximize your benefit from student debt. Now right before I came on this trip, I was talking to Francisco at the pool where I swim, and he's getting his bachelor's degree in mathematics, and we were talking about school, and he was telling me about, man, I don't know what to do. I have too much student debt. I don't feel like I can go on any further. I'm not going to get a master's or a PhD or anything like that. And I wanted to explain this because most people are not aware of this. When you start your undergrad, first off, that's the most difficult part of getting into school. If you want to go to USC or Harvard or something like that, becoming an undergrad is the hardest. So you're applying for one spot that maybe 10,000 people are applying for. So it's difficult to get in. In fact, I applied 3 times before I got into USC. It was tough. But once you get into a good school and you get your bachelor's, think of your bachelor's degree as your high school diploma, okay? That's the hard part. The master's, the PhD, the doctorates are easier. It's much less competitive. It's much easier to get in because there's much less people trying to get into those spots. And oftentimes the schools are offering you incentives to go to their school. They'll give you money. They'll pay for your education. They'll give you stipends, all kinds of stuff. So when you're broke, you're just starting as an undergrad, it's hard. You're like thinking about all this debt and you're thinking about how to get into school. And you're thinking that as it gets harder, or as you go higher in education, that it's gonna get harder. It doesn't. I never took a class that was any harder than the classes I took in community college, like organic chemistry or calculus or something like that. It never got any harder. So that's the first thing to remember. School is not necessarily gonna get harder. It doesn't get harder. It's like a war of attrition. It's like, who is gonna last longer? That's all it is. Because most people get distracted, they drop out. They're like, hey, I wanna have a kid, I'm gonna buy a car, I wanna start working, so I wanna have money to buy, I wanna consume, I want to buy nice clothes, whatever. That's what your biggest challenge is going to be, not getting through school. School does not get any harder. And in terms of debt is definitely not an issue. So oftentimes your undergrad, you have to fund it. And I would say take out as many debt or loans that you can. Now, if you're going to study art, history, psychology, anthropology, some social science, then you're going to be broke and you're going to be a lot of debt. That's just the sad reality. So you need to understand the way economics works, the law of supply and demand. Go on Indeed, do a search for the top 10 jobs. You're gonna see software engineer, civil engineer, you're gonna see doctors, nurses, you're gonna see stuff like that. Jobs in the areas of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and also healthcare. Those are the things you wanna study because that's what we need. So the market forces are in your favor. If you study something where there's a demand, people are gonna pay you double, triple what you normally would pay because there isn't anybody. Oftentimes I'll get jobs like that and they'll pay me double or triple just because there's nobody else that wants to do what I do for work. So that's what you want to do. You want to study stuff that's in high demand. If you do that, then this is what I was explaining to Francisco since he's studying mathematics. In mathematics, there's a lot of demand for that. When you get out of school, people are going to compete for you because say, hey, we need a mathematician. So guess what? We're going to pay you extra because you're a mathematician, and we're going to do student loan reduction as part of your compensation package. A lot of companies will do that for healthcare workers or engineers or people that are in short demand. What they'll do is they'll say, okay, we're going to give you 20% or we're going to give you 10 grand a year extra towards your student loan. Also, the government has incentives to help people to study things that are in demand. For example, I studied something in healthcare. When I got out of school as an occupational therapist, and still to this day, there's a big shortage. So the government said, hey, I got a letter in the mail. You stay in the field for 4 years, we're going to knock off 25% per year of all of your federal loans. I thought, damn, that's a great deal. At the time, I think it was an extra 30 grand a year that I got out of that. It was awesome. So all I did was I worked at the same hospital for 4 years, and once a year, the federal loan company would send me a letter. I had to get this form filled out by my employer. They had to stamp it with the seal from the hospital and say, yes, Dr. Martinez has worked here all year, and here you go. Well, actually, I wasn't a doctor at the time. I was just a therapist. But I mailed that back, and all of a sudden, a few weeks later, I'd get a letter in the mail that said, I don't remember how much I owed, but let's say I owed $100,000. I got a letter that said, okay, now you owe $75,000. The next year, it said, okay, now you owe $50,000. I thought, wow, that's it? I'm getting paid my full wages at work, and I'm getting this student loan benefit. And at the time, I don't know what the tax laws are now, that was non-taxable, that benefit. I wasn't taxed on that. So that was an additional benefit. Now, the other thing that happens is because I was broke when I was going to school, I was doing income taxes and I was like, oh man, I made 20 grand, I gotta pay 6 grand. It was a lot. A lot of times people don't understand is as you get wealthier in the United States, unfortunately, the tax system is skewed towards the wealthy. It benefits wealthy people. That's why you hear about Amazon or Google, these big companies paying zero taxes, okay? Or rich people like Elon Musk, they pay zero taxes. So you have to know how to play the tax game. So once you graduate and you start working as a doctor or a therapist or an engineer, your income's gonna go up substantially. What happens? You're gonna be allowed to take a lot more tax breaks and tax write-offs. So now you're gonna get your student loans and your school debt and you're gonna deduct that on your taxes. So ultimately, if you finish school and you study something that is in demand, you're gonna get your student loan written off, all your debts. It's gonna get written off. I have friends that came out of school owing like $800,000, almost $1 million in debt. They wrote it all off over the years. They got federal loan forgiveness. They got benefits from their employers that would take big chunks off, and the rest, they just wrote it off because they're high income earners. I'll give you an example. One year, I was doing taxes for myself. I studied tax accounting when I got my MBA. For myself, few family members, the one person I did the taxes for made $300,000 that year. They paid $500 in taxes. Now, I did one of my sister's taxes, and she made about $30,000 that year. Her taxes were $7,000. So I thought, damn, she made $30,000 and she's paying $7,000 in taxes? I mean, I must have made a mistake. I did it over and over and over. No, it was right. She paid $7,000 and the person made $300,000 paid $500, to give you an example. So most people that make a lot of money do not pay a lot of taxes because you get more benefits. So keep that in mind as you're not a high income earner, you're a student, but you are going to be if you study something that's in demand. So don't worry about student loans. Take out the student loans because you might be able to benefit off them. That's one of the mistakes I made when I was in school, is I didn't take out all the loans I could have. In the beginning, I was trying to save money. I had a poor man's mentality. You know, people that don't have a lot of money are thinking about, oh, how am I going to save money? I don't want to go into too much debt. I'm going to go to the state school. It's not worth it. I went to state schools and I went to private schools. Private schools are way better. The education is the same. You learn the same stuff, but it's the resources you have, the network, the cool people, all the intelligent students, the best teachers are going to inspire you. You can't put a price on that. So it's worth taking out the debt, especially since you're going to write it off later if you're a high income earner. Now, if you decide you want to get a doctorate or a master's or a PhD or something like that, well, I have a friend, Nathan. He's an electrical engineer. He's getting his PhD from USC. When you go in for a PhD, the school pays you. Now, how is that? The professor is doing research on something. They need research assistants. So they apply for it and they'll get some big grant from a company or from the US government, you know, for $5 million studying. Like a friend of mine is a chemist, a PhD chemist. She got a grant for like $20 million to study polymers or plastic. They want to make plastics out of planes. They burn less fuel. So she got this big grant and she needed assistance. So guess what? She hired a bunch of PhD students. They paid for all their tuitions. They gave them stipends, like $3,000 a month to live on. They gave them paid apartments. They paid all their expenses. All they had to do was study, work on the PhD, work on the research, and help out the professor with students, grading papers, teaching lectures, stuff like that. Easy. You get income, housing, and a free school. So PhDs are the best. If you're looking at going to grad school, don't be discouraged. You have a lot more opportunities at grad school for loan forgiveness and all that kind of stuff. Because remember, as you become more educated, it's like a pyramid. There's less. There's only like 12% of the US population that has a college degree, and something like 8% of those are bachelor's degrees, and like 3% are masters and 1% are doctorates and PhDs. So that's why you want to do that. I got my doctorate, I got everything paid for, and whatever didn't get paid for, I got it written off. So that's the way to go in terms of student loan debt, and that's going to help guarantee that you have more success. So thank you for watching, and from La Habana, Cuba, this is Dr. Ernesto. Thank you and goodbye.